Hi everyone, Miss Rossi here. Today we're going to talk about our Unit 8, Day 5, and we're going to divide with irrational denominators. So if you watched the last video, we did things like if you have an irrational number in the denominator, so something like 3 over radical 5, we need to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by, in this case, radical 5 over radical 5. So what we found was if I multiplied this by radical 5 and I multiply this by radical 5, and with 3 radical 5 over radical 25. And again, we talked about there's a special relationship here. When I multiply radical 5 times radical 5 and I get radical 25, well, that's really just 5. So 3 radical 5 over 5 is the equivalent. Now, what we have to talk about is, well, what happens if there's more than one term on the bottom? So I have to introduce a new term to you, okay? And that thing is called a conjugate. Okay, so a conjugate is a binomial where we change the middle sign. All right, so if I have something like, let's say 2 plus radical 5 has a conjugate of 2 minus radical 5. And the reason is, if I take 2 plus radical 5 and I multiply by its conjugate, right? So it's kind of like its opposite, but not quite, right? And if I take this right here and I double distribute, right? So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative radical 5 is negative 2 radical 5. My middle terms, now I have a positive 2 radical 5. And then my last terms, so radical 5 times radical 5, radical 25, which is then just 5. Now, I can combine my like terms. And what I want you to notice about this one and this one is that they're opposites, right? So they cancel. They're gone. So now this is just 4 minus 5. This is really just negative 1. So that whole thing, this whole thing right here, multiplied to be negative 1. Now notice there's no radicals, okay? If I had something like, let's say 3 minus radical 2, it has a conjugate of 3 plus radical 2. Okay, so again, the only thing we're doing is we're changing the middle sign. All right, so let's talk about where this is going to come in to play. All right, so let's say that I have an example. And let's say I have 3 over 2 plus radical 6. All right, so the reason I'm doing this is I can't leave a radical in the bottom. So I multiply by the conjugate. So 2 minus radical 6, 2 minus radical 6. All right, in our multiplying lesson, we talked about how to distribute. So now that's 6 minus 3 radical 6. Now, remember this is in parentheses, secret parenthesis there. We're going to double distribute. So 2 times 2 is going to give me 4. 2 times negative radical 6 is going to give me negative 2 radical 6. 2 times radical 6 gives me a positive 2 radical 6. And then radical 6 times radical 6 is going to give me negative 6. So now I'm going to combine my like terms. I have a 4. I have a negative 6. So I'm going to leave my numerator alone. And then these guys here, remember, we did this on purpose. We did this so they would cancel. So that's a 0. So now 4 minus 6 is -2. And I could leave my answer like this. Or I could divide, but if I divide it by 2 pieces here, I would end up with -3 plus 3 over 2 radical 6. That would be acceptable as well. All right, let's do another one. All right, let's say we have x over x minus radical 7. All right, so again, radical on the bottom, bad news. So multiply by my conjugate, so that's a minus. I'm going to make it x plus radical 7, x plus radical 7. And now I'm going to distribute. So distribute, so it's x squared plus x radical 7 over. All right, now we're going to double distribute. So I have an x squared, then I'll have plus an x radical 7 minus an x radical 7 minus a 7. Okay, so again, middle terms here cancel. So now my answer is x squared plus x radical 7 over x squared minus 7. Can't simplify that, so I'm just going to leave it alone. We're all done with that. All right, let's try one more. All right, let's say I have, let's do 2 plus a radical 3x over 4 minus radical 6x. All right, so let's multiply by my conjugate. Okay, so take this, make that middle term a plus. So 4 plus radical 6x, 4 plus radical 6x. And now we're going to have to double distribute. All right, so 2 times 4 is going to give me 8 plus 2 radical 6x plus 4 radical 3x plus radical 18x squared. And now I'm going to double distribute here. So 16 plus 4 radical 6x minus 4 radical 6x minus 6x. All right, now we just got to clean some things up. All right, so these don't have like radicals, so I can't put them together, but this radical right here can be broken down. So this radical right here, got a radical 9, a radical 2, and a radical x squared, which is going to give me 3x radical 2. Now that's not going to give me anything to combine in my numerator. So I still have 8 plus 2 radical 6x plus 4 radical 3x plus 3x radical 2. And in the bottom here, middle terms are going to cancel. I have a 16 minus a 6x. And we're going to leave the answer like that. Nothing else can be combined. All right. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I hope to see you all soon.